I'm happy to welcome all of you participating in the new session of the International Campus Waldorf. People who are participating and people who are cooperating and giving lectures in that session. And I would like to introduce my assistants. This is Lisa Gauss and Rosa Wolfrum, who will take care of the technical support and organization of everything. Thank you very much for the preparation which has been done before we could start. And also Lisa will put into the chat after an hour or so the certificate of participation. You can download this as usual. So this International Campus Waldorf now has its 5th session starting this year. And we are quite astonished about that wonderful situation. We have more than 3,400 inscriptions, registrations right now from all over the world. And it's some kind of a real experience, not just the idea. It's a real experience that there is a living Waldorf community which is so much interested in having this kind of exchange, which is quite wonderful. That has been the aim and intention of the International Campus Waldorf, that we create an exchange room for Waldorf students mainly, but also, of course, Waldorf parents, Waldorf teachers, all people who are interested in Waldorf pedagogy. And you are free also to, if you like, to put in your email in the chat room so that people maybe can contact you, so that there can be a possibility to have an exchange. Please feel free, as people already started, to say hello in the chat and in your mother tongue and tell from where you are and from where you are listening right now, so that we can see how international it is. Of course, for many people, the time zone is some kind of a restriction. So we will have the video prepared, I think, a couple of days after this session, and it can be downloaded from the website of the International Campus Waldorf. The topic of all the lectures now for this session is how ... is Waldorf, and this ... is some kind of a free space which where we set themes where we found people who are specialists in that field and can contribute. And as I said, I'm very much happy about the willingness of so many people to contribute again. Next week, Martin Rawson will follow my lecture, and he will speak about the topic, how global is Waldorf? And my topic for today, it sounds a bit philosophic, and yeah, it will be a bit philosophic, and we will see how you can deal with it. What I will talk about really is something which is for me a core interest for a long time in my life, and what I called how non-dualistic is Waldorf. And you might ask yourself, what is meant by that? What is meant by saying how non-dualistic is Waldorf? Out of my perspective, I would say this is one of the most outstanding aspects of Waldorf education, and which, as philosophic it sounds, in the very first encounter with the Waldorf school, with the Waldorf community, people are, so to speak, drawn to that aspect. They are intrigued by it too, that there is, maybe they experience it only on that level for the first time, that there is something different, that there is something unique. And when you try to put it in words, it's maybe something like that you say it feels a bit more connected. And it feels a bit, there's a certain warmth, so it's a bit more social. You can experience that too. It's much more nature-oriented as the face of our civilization is right now. And there is some kind of a feeling it's less isolated. So the first encounter with Waldorf has this kind of a certain feeling. This is not how our normal world is. There is some kind of a different world. And some people take that as a problem because it's something strange. And for other people who relate to Waldorf in the end, this is something, oh, I was looking for that. I was longing for that. This is something I missed so much. I finally found it. And so in my talk today, I want to go into that field. What creates that feeling? What is the reason for that? And my idea is you find it in Steiner's philosophy. You find it in Steiner's idea of consciousness, and especially the development of consciousness. And a bit more specific, you find it in Steiner's idea of intelligence. And with this aspect, this Steiner's understanding of intelligence, of course, we touch something which is not only 100 years ago, because it was Steiner's understanding at his time, which is quite a modern aspect in the times of artificial intelligence. So as AI is something totally new in our world, and people embrace it very much, of course, also out of economic reasons, but also people fear it very much. There is a question about what is intelligence, and the way Rudolf Steiner understands intelligence, and the way the learning and the consciousness development is organized and performed in Waldorf schools, this intelligence takes a certain step which is quite unique. And I would like to start with it and go a bit deeper into it. I use a PowerPoint, and please feel free to have screenshots or take a photography with your mobile phone. I can also, of course, I will send the materials to Lisa so that you can download them too. Let me just start it. So here we are. How non-dualistic is Waldorf? The normal understanding of intelligence nowadays, that intelligence belongs to human beings. This is a normal understanding. A human being is intelligent. It's something which is, so to speak, subjective, which is personal, which is connected to the human brain. Now we see machines who can replace it, but normally we say intelligence is something which belongs to humans. And in Steiner's understanding, he thinks intelligence is not something personal, subjective only. It is something universal, which belongs to the world. So there is real intelligence in the world. This is the understanding of Rudolf Steiner. And not only something personal. If we, for example, look into the realm of animals, we see an amazing and also charming display of intelligence. So the birds who found their way to the places without a GPS system, and the other birds who can build their nests without a BA in architecture, for example. So for everything what we as human beings develop as an intelligence, there is some kind of study time necessary, and all the animals have some kind of an incorporated intelligence, which is just given and sets them and places them into the world. And it's an endless joy of observation to see this display of intelligence within animals and how it can be developed also. But there's also in ecosystems, there is some kind of intelligence that all things are connected to each other. And this is also something you can study within plants and differentiated ecosystems. And of course, there is the total ultimate intelligence. It's the intelligence of the universe itself. This is the intelligence of the movement of the planets, of the stars, and everything, which is a cosmic intelligence. And Rudolf Steiner refers to that. He says there is an intelligence in the world, which he also addresses as a cosmic intelligence. And in his in one of his lectures, he says the following: "It is a prejudice of contemporary humanity that their thoughts are only in their heads. Thoughts are indeed spread out in the world. Thoughts are the forces at work in things." This is a wonderful sentence out of my view, because it says thoughts are forces. And this is something we have totally not in our consciousness. We don't have it in our mind, that there is a real force in every thinking process or in every thought. And he says, and our thinking organ is just something that draws from the cosmic reservoir of thought forces that takes thoughts into itself. We must therefore not speak of thoughts as if they were something that belongs only to the human being. We must speak of thoughts in such a way that we are aware of them. Thoughts are the world-dominating forces that are spread everywhere in the cosmos. And this understanding of intelligence, this understanding of thoughts and thinking, this is not the common understanding of our time. There is a crucial difference between Steiner's thinking and the thinking of our time. Goethe, he had an image for that, and he called it the spirit of the earth, which is also, he was looking for this energy which is bringing the things of the world into existence. And for Steiner himself, this is some kind of an intelligence. And he says, in former times, he says, in former times, in the Greek times, there has been a different approach to that idea of intelligence. He says in the Riddles of Philosophy, in one of his books, the Greek perceives the thought as one currently perceives a perception, as one perceives red or yellow. Just as one now ascribes a perception of color or sound to a thing, so the Greek sees the thought in and of the world of things. This is why, at this time, thought remains the bond that connects the soul to the world. The detachment of the soul from the world is only just beginning. It has not yet been completed. So first, we have heard in the first quotation, thoughts are the world-dominating forces. This is the one aspect. The second aspect is, which is quite new, but the second aspect is that thoughts remains the bond that connects the soul to the world. By our thinking, by our thoughts, this is a Greek idea, we are connected to the world, and they can actually see those energies. They can see and perceive those forces, and they, in their mythology, they found names for it. So if they see a spring, they speak about nymphs. And if they see a tree, they speak about dryads and other spiritual beings, just to describe what they see. But this is their understanding of it. So in former times, there has been a total, unquestioned connection to the world by thoughts and by thinking. And that has changed. There was a moment which Steiner calls the detachment of the soul. And one very prominent figure in philosophy who brought that into our consciousness in a historical sense, that was René Descartes in the 17th century, but it started much earlier but he brought it into this sentence, what he said, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And with this, he distinguishes himself as a thinking individuality, and what he can grasp within his thinking from the world, and speaks about res cogitans and res extensa. So those things which appear in our consciousness as thoughts, and those things which appear in the world. They are not connected anymore. They are, so to speak, disconnected. And there was, in the age of scholastic, which has been before, there has been already some kind of a conflict, because they already could perceive that thinking within the consciousness and the things in the world, they were questioning the connection. And the philosophers who tend to the idea of realism, they were quite sure that our thinking, which takes place in our consciousness, is the same as what is the forces of the world. And the other position is the position of nominalism. They say, no, our thinking is just giving concepts and names and ideas just to frame what we see and perceive in the world, but it is not connected anymore. So this has been the discussion at that time. And it is interestingly that by this detachment, something has been born which has been quite new, and this is a newborn self-consciousness. This has been expressed by Descartes. So in the time of the scholastic philosophy, it was the questioning, is thinking and things of the world, are they still connected? Are thoughts and things of the world? And then, a couple of 100 years later, it was Descartes for the first time to say, I'm aware of myself. And this awareness is a result of my awareness of thinking. So when the Greek people, as Steiner said before, perceive thoughts in the world, Descartes is quite aware that he is the one who produces his own thinking. And the interesting thing is, he says that the result of that thinking process, some kind as a conclusion, there must be someone who thinks. There is thinking, so there should be someone who thinks, and this is what I call I. So he connected the human I to the thinking process, but he is not observing what the human I is doing while thinking. So just to give you an example to understand it a bit better, because for the development of philosophy, this is quite an interesting situation. You can say, you normally would say, you wouldn't observe your own hair growing. This is something we don't do. After a couple of weeks, we see, oh, it is necessary to cut my hair, and I go to a place where to do it. But this is, they are too long, so the hairs are long, so I have to cut them. But the process of growing is totally unconscious. And this is quite interesting, this situation, that this is unconscious, that we that the activity of thinking is not conscious, but the result of it is its self-awareness and self-consciousness. This is the situation of the Kantian philosophy. And this brought into the world a certain kind of disconnection and detachment. And Rudolf Steiner, he goes further in that. He says, the everyday sensory world has become an illusion because in the course of philosophical development, the self-conscious ego has found itself more and more isolated within itself, within its inner experiences. You see, this is quite interesting. It's not only that the thinking is subjective. You might take this for given and natural, But it's although the sensory world becomes an illusion, becomes subjective, it's not objective anymore. This is quite a step further, and we think we are told, we become, what Steiner says, isolated within our inner experiences. And then he continues, it has come to see only inner experiences, even in the perceptions of the senses, which betray no power in themselves by which their existence in reality could be guaranteed. So within the sensory world, we find nothing which provides reality, which is some kind of an ontological ground, so to speak. We have lost the ontological ground in the world. Our thinking is not connected anymore, and even our perception is not connected anymore. And this leads, I would say, to the state of the modern consciousness, which is, so to speak, the common psychic ground of our world. So everyone, every single, so to speak, modern soul touches that psychological ground of our modern consciousness, which can be described as, and please feel something, that this is something which is especially for the young people a dramatic experience, so to speak. There is isolation, there is alienation, there is powerlessness, there is emptiness, and there are anxieties. This is something everyone touches, and especially young adolescents, they are bothered by that because they discover, they gain their self-consciousness for the very first time, and they touch that ground of isolation, so to speak. And in the romantic epoch of poetry, there has been, I would like to refer to a poem of a German poet, Hölderlin, who spoke about a world where he can't find anymore something which is meaningful, where there is no God anymore. There is a world without gods. This is his lamentation for Diotima, which is it's called. And he says, every day I go out and always seek another. This is our consciousness situation. We step out of our consciousness every day and we seek something. We seek something which is meaningful for us. We seek something which connects us. I have long since questioned them, all the paths of the land. Above the cooling heights, all the shadows I visit. So he went back into the Greek time, that when the Greek people did it, they found something. Everywhere there was a spiritual ground. And the springs. Upwards the spirit wanders and downwards, begging for rest. So the modern soul cannot find rest in the world because there is no God there anymore, as it has been perceived in the Greek time. And this is not only Hölderlin expressing that. This is not only Steiner and others expressing that. This is also, for example, just to give you an example out of modern philosophy, this has been Sartre who said, in this sense, one can say that the imagination, so our mental images is meant. It's not imagination in a sense of creative images. It's our mental images. In this sense, one can say that the mental images contains a certain nothingness. However vivid, impressive, and strong an imagination may be, it gives its object as non-existent. So the mental image of a dog can't bite, and a mental image of something we would like to eat we stay still hungry. So a mental image doesn't connect us anymore to reality. This is what Sartre says. And you might remember, those who are a bit familiar with it, when Rudolf Steiner speaks about mental images in the second lecture of Study of Man, he also says it is not connected to the ontological sphere anymore. It's only an image, but it's no reality. And this, what Sartre says, this left something in our consciousness, which he describes as nothingness. And interestingly, by overcoming that nothingness, because our soul is suffering, there sets in, this is the other part of our culture, there sets in a certain kind of ever-present sentimentality. So the moment you visit a movie theater or something like that, you or everything in the media world, there is so much sentimentality in it. And even, I have to admit, even in many classrooms you find it, because you want that connection and you cannot find it in your mental images, so you replace it by sentimentality, which is just you find within your feeling something which touches you, even though it's not reality. And there has been a next changing point, which has been quite crucial, but it hasn't been understood till now. It's a very complicated philosopher. His name is Fichte. For Steiner, Fichte was very much important, and he studied his works very much. And it's a next changing point in this dramatic consciousness situation. Fichte says, thus, the positing of the I through itself is the pure activity of the same. So what Fichte says, the I brings itself into its own existence. The ego posits itself, and it is, by virtue of this mere positing through itself, and vice versa, the ego is, and it posits its being by virtue of its mere being. It is at once the agent and the product of the action, the active and that which is produced by the activity. So you can read it and you can think, oh, this is complicated German philosophy. Yes, it is. And you can think, okay, there is a logic in it. Yes, there is. But what is the sense of it? What I would say, the dimension of what Fichte discovered isn't yet in our consciousness, not even within the anthroposophic world or Waldorf world. This is so crucial for Steiner's philosophy and also for the Waldorf education. Normally, if we speak about something which brings itself into its own existence, or I put it otherwise, normally we would say, out of a religious perspective, God is the entity which brings everything into its existence. Yes, this is in every single religion in the world, the understanding of the concept God, that he or she or whoever it is brings everything into existence. And then you can ask, and who brings God into his or her existence? And of course, it must be God, him or herself, doing this. Because if something else brings God into existence, this should be God. You see, God is the beginning of the existence of God and the existence of everything else. And existence of everything else. And the only entity which is in the world, this is Fichte's understanding, which has that capacity of bringing itself into its own existence, this is the I, this is the ego. And by this, the human I finds something within itself which has been lost before, because the human I lost the ontological ground in the world. That has been the result of the detachment, the result of the self-awareness of the human I. So the price of self-awareness is losing its connection to the world, it's losing the ontological ground of the world. But by Fichte, he's doing a step further than Descartes. He is actually watching his own hair growing. So he goes into the activity of the I. He does not only see the result of the thinking, there is the conclusion, therefore I am. He is actually active, observing his own thinking. And by this, he sees this is a moment, this is a miracle, so to speak, because activity and the product, action and product, is the same in the very same moment. For him, that was the most magnific discovery he can have. But there are not many people who, and his whole work is about it. And you can, what he experienced, it's like when ordinary carbon becomes a diamond. So he really sees what the normal thinking is. This is ordinary carbon. But then you go into the activity and you find something which is shiny and solid and wonderful like a diamond. This is what Fichte discovered, and Steiner referred to it in his philosophy of freedom. He said in the third chapter of the philosophy of freedom, but for anyone who has the ability to observe thinking, and with goodwill, every normally organized person has it, this observation is the most important one he can make, for he observes something of which he himself is the originator. You see, it's almost the same wording like Fichte. He observes something of which he himself is the originator. He does not see himself confronted with an initially alien object, but with his own activity. So finding something ontological within our own consciousness. This is the great step Steiner saw in Fichte's philosophy, and he referred to that. And he speaks that this is soul observation. And this soul information observation, he says, it's the most important observation we can make, because he went a step further than Fichte. He is not only seeing, Fichte had some kind of activity consciousness. So watching his hair growing, this is activity consciousness. But it's like you have a walking consciousness. You are totally aware that you are walking, but you have no consciousness to what your walking leads you. So you find new areas in the world. You can enter a new realm in the world. And for what Steiner did, and he was very much in common with Novalis in this aspect, Steiner observed that by observing that activity, we have a real ontological spiritual ground. So what Steiner discovered, I would call it onto spirituality. It's a spirituality which connects the human consciousness in an ontological new way with the world. Otherwise, it would have been lost forever. So if the human I cannot find that activity within itself, it is, so to speak, lost, and replaces it mainly by sentimentality. This is what Steiner's spirituality is, onto spirituality. And I go a bit further. This is a bit of a very difficult quotation, but it gives us a big insight also for the human development. And now I will go a bit more into pedagogical questions. He says in the Riddles of the Philosophy, it is recognized that this self-conscious ego is not isolated in itself and experiences itself outside the objective world, but rather that its detachment from this world is only an appearance of consciousness that can be overcome. So the first sentence says, the human self, which reflects on itself as being isolated, it is not isolated. It is connected to the world, but the detachment we feel, it's only a stage of consciousness which can be overcome. Overcome by realizing that as a human being in a certain state of development, one has to show a temporary form of the ego by pushing the forces that connect the soul with the world out of the consciousness. And this blue sentence, by pushing the forces that connect the soul with the world out of the consciousness, I think out of a pedagogical perspective, this is what we really have to perceive and to be very conscious about the development of the children, especially the development of the young adults, the adolescents, that there is a force that we pushing the forces that connect the soul with the world out of the consciousness. We lose that force, so to speak, and by that we gain self-consciousness. If these forces were constantly at work in the consciousness, then one would not arrive at a powerful self-consciousness at rest with oneself. So to gain power within ourselves, we have to get rid of the world forces. One could not experience oneself as a self-conscious ego. The development of the self-consciousness therefore depends on the soul being given the possibility of perceiving the world without that part of reality which the self-conscious ego extinguishes at a certain level, at the level which lies before its realization. So this extinguishing part, this pushing away, this actively disconnecting of the ego, this is something we have to understand. It's a consciousness situation of our time. And this is something which is not the real ego, but it's a state of the ego. But this makes Waldorf, this is my perspective, Waldorf so difficult to understand, because we always try not to just rest at that stage, go further with it. This is our understanding, because we believe that the human I is much more. And this is something which is the core of our education, that we say that we have a certain understanding of the human I, which is not isolation, which is not nothingness, which is not desperation, which is not anxieties and so on, but that we say the human I, in Fichte's sense, is self-originated. It has its origin in itself. And this is the new development of mankind. And this comes out of pure creative activity. It is not a result, it's always creative. This makes it so difficult to observe, what Steiner says, and also Fichte. It is, in its sense, universal, because it is totally connected to everything which is part of its own activity. It is, when it's active, it takes full responsibility, so there is reliability in it. And within its feelings, it can relate to the world, and I would say it's pure morality. This understanding of the human I, this is something unique in Steiner's understanding of the I, which comes from Fichte. And when he tried to do Waldorf education, he wanted to give the young children to develop that kind of a connected, total, creative, and active human I. And this cannot be replaced by artificial intelligence. This is the essence of human intelligence, which is Steiner's interest in. The question is, how can we reach that stage of the human I? How? Because we all know it's maybe a goal for the future, but it's not yet realized, and it's maybe a difficult task to do. And Steiner describes it in the following way. When we take our mental images, he says, one can hold mental images. This is our normal stage. One can hold mental images that one has gained through sense experiences in the consciousness in such a way that one experiences in them the reproduction of the sense perceptible reality. This is a normal human way of understanding the world. We create a mental image in order to understand the world around us, and this is some kind of a reproduction of reality. And then he says there's another way, and when one can also experience those mental images in such a way that one allows the power to be effective in the soul, that they exert in it through the way they are, apart from the fact that they depict something sensual. So every mental image is a reproduction, yes. It is an image of the world, yes. But within it, there is some kind of a power. And this power brings them into appearance, brings them into the consciousness. And if we not only relate to the mental images as something which reflects the world, but which has been coming out of our own activity, this power corresponds with the forces of the world. This is the new idea that the ontological sphere, which has been a sphere of forces in the outer world, we got detached, we gain our self-consciousness, which is, so to speak, powerless, which is not connected anymore. But if we overcome this as a mere result, if we enter the activity of the human I, we create, so to speak, a new ontological sphere. For Steiner, he followed two pathways in his philosophy. I leave that out. He followed two pathways in his philosophy. The one pathway was Goethe. When Goethe says that by regarding an ever creative nature, I become worthy of spiritual participation in its productions. So the one pathway offered by Goethe to Rudolf Steiner is looking into the world and observe with our senses the phenomena of the world. And this leads to a spiritual connection to the world outside. So not our thinking leads to that. Our thinking gives us a dead world, so to speak. There is no spiritual participation through our normal thinking process, but Goethe sees by our observation this is possible. And the inner pathway, which has been offered by Fichte and has been pursued by Novalis, this says the mysterious path leads inwards. Within us or nowhere, its eternity with its worlds, the past and the future. So we find a diamond, so to speak. We find eternity within ourselves if we follow this soul observation. And we can have some kind of a reconstruction of Steiner's epistemology, which shows that our normal level of understanding is we have mental images, we have representations. and they reflect the world. And when Steiner started to do Waldorf education, he always said, never bring dead concepts, never bring only mental images, only representations into the world. This is not Waldorf. It's not Waldorf learning is not accumulation of mental images, because by this we detach the soul of the child from the world. So what he tried to do to overcome that consciousness of mental images also in the Waldorf learning system, and he referred to the human eye as an activity. The human eye as a center of activity, and this activity is directed in two directions. One direction is observation. This is the Goethean way, and it leads to perceptions. The other way is towards thinking. This is a Fichtean way or Novalis way, and this leads to concepts and ideas. So we have, and out of perception and concepts, this is a process which is taking place before we construct our mental images. So for the one side, there is Goethe, and for the other side, there is Fichte and Novalis, so to speak. They are the guardians for that, and they has been the inspirations for Steiner to do this. And if we go into the Waldorf learning system, we would say on the left side, where Goethe is written, this is where we bring in the phenomena of the world into our classroom, so that we say every single learning step is experience-based, every single learning step is sense-based, and it's body-related, world-related learning process. If you go to the right side, to the Fichte-Novalis side, this is, don't bring, what Steiner says, don't bring dead concepts into the classroom, that we try to trigger with our learning the self-activity of the children, that they find within themselves this powerful force of thinking, without, if they don't see that as their treasure within themselves, they cannot find their own ontological ground, which is the goal of Waldorf learning, to find that force of thinking within the human consciousness. Interestingly, Goethe and Novalis, they have found both of them a similar symbol for what they did. For Goethe, it is his concept is perceptual power of thinking, and he was looking for the so-called archetypal plant. So this is a intelligence in the outer world, so to speak. This is a thinking force, the spiritual force in the outer world. And for Novalis, who the inner pathway, so to speak, which is called magic idealism, or what I call onto-spiritualism, because it touches the ontological sphere, he found the symbol, the metaphor, as a blue flower. So archetypal plant, Goethe, blue flower, Novalis, those are the two sides of a new spiritual understanding of the world. And just to say, because this leads very deep into the spiritual sphere of anthroposophy, you know that the Christian religion, they have this wonderful images of shepherds and kings. So when the baby was born, the child was born, the shepherds and the kings, they appeared and they brought their presents. And you know, Steiner referred to that image of shepherd and kings also in the foundation stone works when he founded the Anthroposophical Society. So the pathway of the shepherds, this is a pathway of Goethe. This is a connection to the outer world. This is a connection where you take care of the outer world and the world of phenomena. And the pathway of the kings, this is what is meant by this magic idealism, by this pathway of the philosophy of freedom for Rudolf Steiner, where you find within your own thinking activity a new spiritual ground. So what Steiner tries to do to really not give a new religion, but finding within yourself by your own activity a new ground for spirituality. And I would like to finish with two images. One image, of course, it's very much well known. This painting from Michelangelo in Rome. And you know what's there is Adam touching God. But the way Michelangelo painted it, it's quite striking and quite extraordinary. Because if you imagine, this is a goal of every religion, to connect to God, to come together with the spiritual fear, to be really connected with the spirit. But normally the attitude is some kind of devotion. And it's some kind of self-denial. It's also very often self-accusation, and it's definitely subordination. This is every religion displays being connected to the spirit means subordination. But Michelangelo, look at that Adam, he is totally relaxed. He's totally self-aware. He is totally body and sense related. So this is a new way presented by Michelangelo how to touch God. This is, so to speak, the Goethean way of really going into the world of the senses, being connected to the body. For the Catholic Church, that might not happen, being connected to the body, but this is something which has been painted by Michelangelo in the heart, so to speak, of the Catholic Church, because this is the new consciousness of spirituality. Old spirituality, yes, this is devotion. New spirituality, this is, I would say, freedom. This is the idea behind it. And I go one step further. You might know this image from Rudolf Steiner in the course of curative education. The point and circle meditation. In mir ist Gott, within me is God, God is in me, and I am in God. So this sentence, I am in God, so I'm totally connected with the yellow sphere around me. This has been what Michelangelo has been painting. This is what we try to do in the Waldorf schools in the early childhood years, in the class teacher years. The young children should relate to something spiritual in the world. I am in God. I'm connected with the world by observation, not by religion, by observation, by phenomenology. This is the way, but by doing phenomenology this way, I'm connected to God. And Steiner is going a step further, that within me, when adolescents come, the first experience of adolescence within me is nothingness. Within me is emptiness. Within me is isolation. Within me is desperation. And to overcome that, we need to find something spiritual within ourselves. And this is the first word. Within me is God. So God is not only something outside, but it's also, it can be found within my own consciousness. And this is out of my understanding. This is out of my understanding the non-dualistic idea of Waldorf education. Yes, so far. I hope you could follow this philosophical pathway. my idea around it, that this is, so to speak, the anthroposophic core value of Waldorf education. And this is what Steiner was trying to bring into the learning system of Waldorf education, and which distinguishes this understanding of the human eye, this understanding of the human intelligence, is something which distinguishes the atmosphere of Waldorf education, that we find something of being connected. There is an atmosphere of coherence in there. Antonovsky speaks about coherence. And you touch that atmosphere of coherence, but the real ground of it you find, I would say, in this kind of philosophy of Rudolf Steiner, which is, I have to admit, quite tricky, quite difficult, but I hope you could grasp a little bit of what I would try to explain. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So, but we have I'm good in time, so to speak, although it was a bit maybe exhausting to follow. And we have a bit of time to speak about it, and you can place your questions or place your comments. Maybe I need some help, someone who is doing the moderation, and help me a bit if there is someone who wants to ask a question or contribute something or give a comment or discuss a certain aspects. Is there some? Christoph? Can you do that? Maybe doing moderation. Can you? That would mean to refer to the chat a bit and something.
First of all, I want to say thank you very much, Joost. This was a wonderful opening of the new cycle.
Thank you, Christoph.
Very, very, very remarkable. I'm very happy to have listened to that. Yeah, thank you. But we have some time for questions or remarks. Who wants to start? Leila? Is there someone who wants?
There's a question in the chat, one.
Ah, there you are.
There's one from Betsy Weil. Could you say something about sentimentality in the classroom?
Yes, this is it's of course it's a tricky point because there's a judgment in it. But sometimes I see this, of course, Waldorf education brings some kind of aesthetics in the classroom.
Yeah.
And this aesthetic is displayed by blackboard drawings, for example. It's also displayed by the way we maybe have season tables with all the little beings there, and we have some kind of a way of bringing aesthetics in the classroom, and we want to bring some kind of a religious feeling in it. And I sometimes think, yes, we may do that, but it should be measured and balanced by something a bit more, which also is more neutral and more down to the facts consciousness of our time. So the way we choose stories, then there comes a moral message in it. This would be sentimentality out of my view if we bring too much feelings and emotions into our stories, into our blackboard drawings, and when there is some kind of an overwhelming aesthetical situation. I have to be careful because this has to be explored by examples, but we can have some Waldorf books maybe where I would say this is a bit too much. And maybe the question, you see that, for example, when the older grades, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, they have some kind of resistance to Waldorf aesthetics. And this is normal. This is natural. They don't want to have it anymore. So it belongs maybe into a certain age, but it should also, we should stop in a certain age with it. And for me, quite as interesting is the transition from class teacher time into high school time. If we really have a surrounding which corresponds with the developing consciousness of the adolescents, or if it's some kind of prolonging, doing it a bit further as we has done it before in the class teacher time. Is the high school should be something totally new, and this is also the question of having a sense for sentimentality.
May I add something?
Yes, please. Of course.
I say it like this. We need also in the elementary school a new soberness. A new soberness. We are often exhausted in the peripheries that the children experience their learning. Yeah. So I very much agree with you in this point. Carla Neves, you raised your hand.
Thank you, Christopher. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Jost.
Hi, Carla.
Hi. I was coming back to the Sistine Chapel, the image of Adam and God, something that this time brought my attention into it was this aspect of the human being, Adam, being all alone, and God is there, all surrounded by other helpers or something like that,
Yes.
that are his companions there. And well, I've seen this image for so many times. And for the first time, that loneliness, that not loneliness, but being by himself of Adam came in a high spot for me.
Thank you so much. That was also my impression, that there is a modern type of consciousness represented by Michelangelo. Yeah. Being alone and self-aware, so to speak. Yeah.
Joan Reiner.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jost, for a wonderful talk. I made a note while you were speaking about this balance between the observation and you getting perceptions from observation, and then the bringing living concepts to create thinking, really, and triggering in oneself and in the children, triggering thinking. And I think for me, my experience in the classroom is that that's where we struggle the most.
Yes.
And when you spoke about sentimentality, that made sense, because I think that is what prevents us, or prevents that living concepts coming into the classroom. So it becomes, it's one can bring reverence without being sentimental. And Steiner somewhere says that we need to have a very deep interest in everything in the world, and that to not have that interest would be horrible. I think that those were the words that he used. And not having that interest allows the sentimentality, because we get caught up in that sentimentality. It's very seductive. But if we can present like rigorous academic process in the high school, or encourage that, then we can, together with real observation, Goethean observation, and lead by example in that way, bringing living concepts, then I think that we can then overcome the sentimentality that dampens the thinking.
Yes. Yes, I can see that. Thank you. There is a difficulty, and we have this idea of triggering the thinking activity. This is a totally didactical question. So in every single subject, we have to offer the entry point for the children to find their own activity within it. So this is no top-down learning anymore. This is interesting. There cannot be top-down learning. It should be every learning from the first grade on is self-exploring learning. It's something they have to find their own learning pathways, and we have to create a space for that. And of course, the creative activity of the teacher, it's some kind of in the beginning, the orientation for the young children. So if the teacher is not creative, the children cannot find their own creativity within themselves. Of course, the creativity of the teacher shouldn't be overwhelming. This can also be a problem. So it should be modest, it should be clear, it should be step back in the moment the child steps in, but it has to be totally creative, but in a total modest way. So that can happen, not an overwhelming creativity for the children, but being non-creative as a teacher. This gives the children no example, because to become an I, you have to meet an I. And this is the idea. So you have to meet another person, and this meeting has to be exemplified in a classroom.
Yeah, that is, I guess that's very true. We go to Ellen Vanselius. You have raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. Jost, I have to thank you very much for your clear picture you painted on the pathway of the shepherds and the kings. It was a very visual way of describing it that I appreciated. And I want to reconnect to the elementary school and the need for sobriety in the elementary school. And I think that nature plays a part in this. Nature has a quality of being self-regulating. So outdoor pedagogy in the elementary school is one way I see of overcoming too much sentimentality. Sorry for my
Please, can you repeat the last sentence? What you said?
That outdoor pedagogy.
Yes, outdoor.
Yes, in the elementary school is a way of overcoming an exaggerating amount of sentimentality, because nature has a self-regulating force in it. If you in the forest run too fast, you will trip over the roots, and this is the self-exploring learning at hand in a very phenomenological state.
Yes, thank you so much.
Lisa, are there other remarks in the chat room?
Yeah, there was one, but I'm not sure if Jost already answered it. What about Waldorf traditions and traditional Waldorf aesthetic related to the issue of real consciousness activity? Could we talk of what actually takes place in Waldorf schools and how to face these challenges? It's from Esteban Casati.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Esteban, I'll just give you I'm thinking about those things all the time. When I was planning this session of lectures and I found the title, I was quite happy about it. A couple of months later, when it was already out in the open and established, I found a new idea for a session of lectures, and I wanted to call it Waldorf tools. So what are the tools we use in Waldorf worlds? So blackboard drawing, yeah, kind of painting, craft work, and so the role of imagination and so on. So actually, the question you put, would be, out of my perspective, would offer a new field for a session of lectures, that we really investigate why do we use certain tools in the Waldorf school, and what do they provide, and how should we maybe have a new look on them, because they have a certain tradition, they have a certain upbringing, they have a certain time when they have been invented for the first time, and maybe they should be transformed nowadays. And maybe we have to find a new inspiration for Waldorf aesthetics. What I would say, out of my experience, the moment you don't have only a European Waldorf education, but you have an international Waldorf education, you always see many wonderful examples and ideas of this kind of transformation. And maybe we should just compare what has been done in different countries in the world and how things appear differently due to the different approaches and perspectives. Esteban, are you still here? You seem to raise your hand, but now I can't.
I am here.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you listen? Okay.
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Greetings to all. Thank you, Jost. I enjoyed the speech, and yes, I think you answered part of my question. It was related, yes, just at the end, you spoke about how Waldorf education is around the world. I know many Waldorf schools in my country, and traditions is a key issue for me, because mostly, and these themes have been explored at least by Sven and Martin, whom I read occasionally. They are in this room, and also Neil Boland, who visited the place where I live this year. And it is really appealing to see how traditions are usually untouched, no matter the time and the geographic and the cultural or ethnic difference. So when I read the title, so invited how non-dualistic is Waldorf, and then I listened to the approach that was behind your approach to that question. So for me, the first question that comes is, okay, so this is an idea of how Waldorf, and I share it completely, because any of us who has followed Steiner's works or read it, you arrive to that sort of reflections or conclusions. But the thing is, okay, well, now we have something that we call Waldorf school, it has its traditions, it has its aesthetics, and how do we deal with something that is already presented as Waldorf? I will give an example. A teacher shows a photograph. There's like some kids, and there's a blackboard with a nice drawing, and they're sitting on the floor, and they have no uniform. They have just normal clothes. And he shows this photographs, and he says, how Waldorf this is. And it was not ironic. It is a Waldorf. And I was seeing that photograph, and there was no Waldorf in that. There was a Waldorf aesthetics, certainly, but I could know nothing about the pedagogical practices taking place there. So the question is, okay, so there are people that already see things like in this similar way. I can share all the concepts you should. But how can we do about our actual real Waldorf schools and its colonial curriculum and its traditional ways of understanding non-critical developing of Waldorf pedagogy in the classrooms? So how we deal with that problem? Because the thing is, okay, there are people that don't think the same way, but how can we help for it to be more genuine?
So we have the luck that Martin wrote into the chat that he will address that question next time. So because it's a far-stretching questions. There has a lot to be covered. What I would like to say, this is, of course, we have to reflect on our traditions, and there are maybe some things that can be criticized. Also, when we speak about Waldorf aesthetics, and everyone knows from the very moment what we mean by it, then there are qualities connected to it. This is a quality of warmth, for example, that at the moment we enter an aesthetical atmosphere of a Waldorf room, there is warmth in it. There is some loving being connected with the world. You can feel the way the people take care of the room. They take care of everything in a nice way. They love the materials they use. So there is not neglection. Yeah, there is admiration in it, and those are qualities we should keep, and they are necessary in a certain age. And this might be the question that on the one side there is a tradition we love and which belongs to us, and on the other side we have to see, is it maybe too European? We have to question ourselves. Is it for this time okay? Is it for this age of children okay? And all these things has to be questioned. And Sven now put into the chat already, he also will address questions like that. So that will accompany us.
Yeah. So again, Jost, thank you so much. It was a wonderful start. And we're looking forward to next meetings.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, for participating, for being patient. It was also complicated for myself. A bit of a challenge to bring that into that room, a Zoom room, so to speak. So have a good evening, good day, good afternoon, wherever you are, good night. And looking forward to see you again, for me in 2 weeks, but you will see each other next week. All the best for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muito obrigada.